Beef Market Update with Ann Wasco on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Haney Farms. It's now time for the Beef Market Update, and as always, we're joined by Ann Wasco with the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Ann, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Sean. How are you there?
Oh, I'm doing good. You can definitely feel spring is in the air.
Oh, yes. Temperature's really warm here in southwest Saskatchewan this week, and the grass is turning green.
Okay, let's start off just a quick snapshot of the market right now. It's spring. Things are good. You're bullish as all get out?
Well, it is spring, and I guess, if you're going to bet on cattle markets, that's the time of year to bet on them from a seasonal, historic perspective. So 2017 is living up to that kind of an expectation. So a nice spring rally, more than kind of what history would suggest from fall low to spring high, but nevertheless, certainly a substantial rally. And here in Alberta, for example, fed cattle prices got up into the mid-170s on a live basis. That's the highest they've been since first quarter of 2016, so in over a year. So again, strong markets all the way around. And I think, Sean, when you kind of step back and look at it, supplies are still, big. We still have the cattle coming that we've been talking about. But some of the things that are positive certainly go to better producer decisions, but also some outside influences and factors on the market. An example of part of this up in the market is due to some of the day-to-day decisions producers are making is selling cattle aggressively. And when we pull cattle forward and sell aggressively, carcass weights come down. You have reduced tonnage on the marketplace. In the U.S., it's about 15 pounds this year versus last year. Here in Canada, steer weights are 24 pounds lower on a draft basis. So you produce less beef, and less beef continues to be supportive to this market.
Yeah, we give ourselves a lot more flexibility when we're current.
Yeah, but we talk now today we use the word leverage. I always used to use the word bargaining power, but you just have that much more clout, if you will, as a seller.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to look at the context of the up and downs of the market a little bit. So, you look at the last 5 days. I'm looking at the June live cattle future, and you look at the last week. It's like, oh, we're down. We're almost flat, but we're in the negative. It's red. So then I pulled up, and we're floating right about 110 right now. If you look at the last month, we're actually up 3.5%. And here's a really good one. In the last 3 months, we're almost up 6%. So, we've had a kind of a slow, has it been as slow and steady up as we haven't really thought of it that way? We tend to focus more on the downs and stuff like that, but.
Well, we do tend to focus on the downs, but also when we've had a very discount structures in the futures market. So the fact that you bring up talking about June live cattle, we've certainly had this big discount for quite some time between what the futures are telling us and what the actual cash market's doing on the day-to-day basis on the spot. So that's what we call basis, and we've had this very strong basis position. So when you've got a discount structure in the futures market, it will be directional for sure, but it's going to be at a slower pace. Now, if you were to look at those same percentage changes on the cash market, you'd certainly see bigger increase up, from following what's happened here in the first quarter. And just over the last 2 weeks, of course, the U.S. market does look like their cash has topped, starting to come off as expected, but the numbers are probably a little bit more significant than what you're seeing on the June live cattle from a percentage perspective. Okay,
well, let's talk about some of these things that are going on. U.S. trade numbers, they're good.
Yeah, it's, we talked earlier in the conversation about things that producers are doing, and then, of course, our outside influences that, too often we think of outside influences as a negative thing, something bad's happening, and lots of times that's been the case in the past, but right now, certainly outside forces, I'd suggest to you have been more positive, especially when you look at trade for both, certainly for the U.S., not just beef, but also pork and broiler exports are all up. They just got their February data out. out. Beef exports in February in the U.S. were up 18%. Year-to-date, pork exports are up 18%. Broiler exports are up 13%. So some great news, because we know we've got, and we talked about this, we know we've got all this extra production coming on in the U.S. You know, the more we can see U.S. move offshore to other countries, certainly is going to be supportive to the domestic market. And here in Canada, even though our export data, and we only have January data to start with, but it was off about 5%, but Canadian slaughter's up 6% so far this year. So certainly if we're producing more, and we'll watch the export data as we continue to get it in, but it certainly tells a good story on the domestic beef demand front here in Canada.
Well, and so what, but let's just jump back to the U.S. really quick. What's driving that export, the increased exports?
Well, certainly price is going to be one factor. So these prices are certainly better than they were last fall, but they're all lower than the price levels we saw the U.S. come through in 2014 and 15. So looking at better value. And don't forget what's going on. You've got Australian exports down because of what's going on with the U.S. cattle herd. The Brazilian impact, just more here recently in March. But certainly today you'd suggest that North American beef is good value.
Okay, what about domestic demand? It's this beginning of barbecue season. I can only do so much from my side, but what are the rest of Canadians doing?
Oh, it does look like, and of course, we're just going to get into that now. Don't forget this year, Sean, that Easter is later than often years, so we really don't get that kind of bump, if you will, on the beef demand side and that barbecue perspective until we get past Easter weekend next weekend, or at least into the sales for post-Easter. But I would expect with what we're already seeing to start 2017, that we're setting ourselves up for a great Q2 as far as beef demand goes. Well,
the big part of that is making sure that retailers have it featured in the store.
And I think if you look at U.S. data today, that's certainly been the case. You know, more featuring, especially on the beef side, some pretty aggressive featuring in the U.S. And I think you're going to start to see better featuring here in Canada as some of these wholesale prices start to relieve themselves a bit.
Oh, come on, Loblaws, do your part. Okay, Annie, it was...
Exactly.
Okay, Annie, it was great to talk to you again.
Okay, thanks, Sean.